There are a handful of small changes that can completely transform how well your newborn falls asleep and stays asleep. And most parents have no idea these changes exist. That's not because they're bad parents. It's because the advice circulating from grandparents, friends, and well-meaning strangers is often rooted in outdated myths, rather than anything backed by how babies actually sleep. Once a parent identifies which of these habits they're accidentally following and swaps them out, the shift in their baby's sleep can happen almost immediately. So in this video, I'm walking you through the 6 changes I most consistently see make the biggest difference for newborn sleep and exactly how to put each one into practice starting tonight. It walks you through the development milestones you can expect across your baby's entire first year. It's genuinely reassuring to have on hand because you'll always know exactly when a new skill should be showing up and when something's actually worth raising with your doctor. Change number 1 is learning to actually catch your baby's tired signs before they escalate. Newborns start showing these signals surprisingly fast, often after only a short stretch of being awake. And there are 2 tiers to watch for: early tired signs and late tired signs. Early on, you'll notice them losing interest in you or their toys. Their gaze drifts off into the distance. Their movements might get jerky and uncoordinated, or swing the opposite way and go unusually still and quiet. They'll start getting fussy, yawning, rubbing at their eyes, maybe tugging at their ear or their face. The moment you spot your baby's particular version of these cues, that's your window to start winding down towards bed. Because the single biggest thing you want to avoid is letting them tip into overtired territory. Miss that window, and your baby slides into an overtired state, which usually means hours of crying, fussy baby, and fights sleep hard. Here's the mechanism behind that. Once a baby crosses into overtired, their body starts releasing cortisol and adrenaline, the same stimulating hormones behind the fight or flight response. With these hormones flooding a stressed little body, actually settling into sleep becomes genuinely difficult. And even once they do fall asleep, they'll wake far more often between sleep cycles than they would have if you had caught those early stages and started the routine bedtime the moment they appeared. So the fix is simple in principle, even if it takes practice. Stay alert for those early cues, specifically learn what your own baby's version of them look like, and as soon as you spot them, start moving towards bed rather than pushing for just a little bit longer. Because with newborns, there usually isn't much of a buffer between fine and overtired. Change number 2 is understanding exactly how long your baby can actually be awake between naps. This is closely tied to change 1 because most parents simply don't realize how short that window really is. And they end up with their baby up far too long, which again lands you right back in overtired, overstimulated territory. Fussy, hard to soothe, hard to keep asleep. As a general rule, babies 4 months and under need another nap somewhere between 45 and 120 minutes after waking. If their previous nap was long, a couple of hours, say, you can often stretch closer to that 120-minute end. But if that last nap was short, maybe 30 or 40 minutes, you're looking at needing sleep again closer to the 45-minute mark. Since you now know newborns generally fall somewhere in that 45 to 120-minute range, you can start watching for tired signs specifically around that window, rather than guessing blindly, and get them down to the moment where those signs actually appear. Instead of waiting until the crying starts, you're always playing catch-up with an overtired baby who's much harder to settle than they would have been 10 minutes earlier. Change number 3. 3 is letting go of the idea that keeping your baby awake longer during the day will earn you better sleep at night. Plenty of parents are told that limiting daytime naps sets up a stronger nighttime sleep. And for a baby under 4 months, that advice is simply backwards. Cutting back on day naps doesn't bank you better sleep later. It just produces an overtired baby who struggles to fall asleep at night. and wakes more often when they're down, compared to a baby who naps freely throughout the day. Under 4 months babies should really be napping on demand, and that can genuinely means up to 5 naps across the day, sometimes more depending on how they're feeling. There's no real nap schedule to enforce at this age. The actual fix is simply letting your baby rest when they seem to need it during daytime hours, because that approach is what makes nighttime sleep easier to achieve and keeps it lasting longer once they're finally down. Change number 4 is fixing a sleep environment that's accidentally too stimulating. Plenty of parents design a nursery to feel warm and welcoming, which makes total sense emotionally, but that same warmth often translates into way too much visual and auditory input for a baby who's trying to settle down. Newborns are intensely curious. They're encountering nearly everything for the first time, and it doesn't take much to tip them into overstimulation. So it's not surprising that mobiles hanging over the crib, decorative wall art, night lights, or music playing softly in the background can all end up distracting your baby right when you need them calm and drifting off. The fix on the visual side is straightforward. Make your room genuinely dark, dark enough that you personally couldn't comfortably read a book in there. The level of darkness means when your baby stirs between sleep cycles or you're helping them settle initially, there's nothing in the room competing for their attention and keeping them alert. The second half of this fix is sound. You obviously can't stay silent for the entire duration of every nap, and honestly, you shouldn't try. What actually works here is white noise machine, producing steady, consistent sound like radio static or waterfall. That constant background layer masks the ordinary noise of a household in motion, so your baby isn't jolted awake by a sudden, sharp sound. And if they do stir briefly between sleep cycles, they won't clearly hear you in the kitchen, the television playing, or a conversation happening elsewhere in the house, and think, wait, something's happening out there. I want to be part of it. That masking effect is exactly what helps your baby drift back to sleep on their own after a natural, brief wake-up between cycles, instead of fully rousing, getting curious about the noise, and needing you to come resettle them all over again, which, over the course of the night, is the difference between a handful of quick self-resettles and multiple full wake-ups that leave everyone exhausted by morning. Change number 5 is resisting the urge to scoop your baby up the instant they make noise. Newborns are genuinely loud, restless sleepers, largely because they spend so much of their sleep time in REM sleep, which is naturally movement heavy. During that stage, expecting, squirming, crying out, grunting, and all kinds of fussy sounding noise that isn't actually distress. There's also the broader mechanic of sleep cycles, which applies to every human, not just babies, between cycles and briefly surface towards wakefulness. And if nothing's actually wrong, you simply drift back down without ever fully waking. Babies work exactly the same way. If you hear your baby crying out, grunting, or fussing, the right move is usually to pause and wait, because they're mostly likely either passing through the brief between cycle resurfacing or still deep in their REM sleep. Given a moment, they'll settle back down and stay asleep on their own. But if you rush in and lift them out of the crib, you actually wake them fully. And now you're dealing with a genuinely cranky, fussy baby who wants to go back to sleep, but can't simply because you woke them before they were actually ready to be woken. And now you're both starting the settling process all over again from scratch. And the final change is letting go of the push for early bedtime before your baby is developmentally ready for one. Before roughly 3 months of age, newborns genuinely do have a late natural bedtime. And when I say late, I mean it. Often closer to 10 or 11 at night, and shifting unpredictably from one evening to the next. Once your baby passes the 3-month mark, you'll naturally start to see that bedtime gradually creeps earlier and settle into something far more consistent. But before then, fighting that biology just isn't worth it. You're better off following your baby's actual readiness cues rather than a clock, because forcing an early bedtime usually just backfires. After a short nap, your baby wakes back ready to play long before they're genuinely ready to settle in for the night. Those are the 6 changes that make the biggest difference in how well your newborn falls asleep and stays asleep. If you want more newborn sleep strategies, check out this video next. And if you want to get better at reading your baby's cues in general, this other video covers exactly that. I'll see you in the next video with more parenting tips.